Thank you very much for taking the time to view this quick training video for faculty and staff in how to use the College Connections Pathways documents that we've created for this 1920 school year and we'll use into the future. Very excited that these are getting out there because there's a lot of culturally diverse and linguistically diverse students and their parents who have a lot of confusion about college, work, and financial options for the future, and I think a lot of us as faculty have a difficult time. So we've put these documents together in such a way to really help us all understand better what students' options are so they know their pathways to the future. So the two different editions we have, one is a faculty edition that I'll use as the template for what we talk about in this video. And there's also one that has a bit more information about things you probably already know as a faculty member for students and parents to make sure that they know all the different things required to get out of high school and also to get into college and careers in the military. This version is also translated into Spanish, which of course is most of our student and parent population for linguistically and culturally diverse students and their families. And overall, the purpose for this document is to make sure that we all believe that every student has a pathway to college and career goals, and that we show them that they do have a path, and we literally help them sketch out what it looks like on paper and then to get to the future that they're hoping for. So as the students and the families and us, as we open up these documents, the first thing, of course, we'll see is the table of contents, and then we'll see a page talking about the purpose of this document. And you can read that on your own time. Followed by that, there's a page that basically talks briefly about some introductory matters to help us make sure we understand the situation about these students and the complexities of it. And it takes us next into a couple of flow charts. I've put the first and second ones here because the first one talks about college pathways, and the second one talks about military and career pathways for students. And the basic idea is that a student would literally put their finger at the top of the page, at that first box, or the purple or the yellow, depending if they want to go to college or military career. And they would start by answering the questions in the diamonds with a yes or no, and following the arrows of the flow to whatever direction that they meet the requirement for, whether yes or no or kind of a clarification. And the basic idea is that we want everyone to see that by the time you get to the bottom of the page, there are pathways and options for you. Might not be the same pathway that every student has the option to do, but every student has a pathway to college and then even into military and career. So to give you the idea of how it would work, a student would start at the very top of the first chart if they wanted to go to college. They would start off and say, hey, I'm just about to graduate high school. So it's going to ask them the question, I am U.S. born, or I'm a naturalized citizen, or a permanent resident with a green card. If they said yes, they go to the left or the right of the page. If they said no, they go to the left. And that's what our sample student here is going to do. So they're going to follow that no arrow to the next diamond that says I have DACA status, which is the deferred action or documented students. And they would say yes or no, I have a visa, or no, I'm undocumented. In this case, we'll say the student's undocumented. The next option down there is that they would actually be unable to enroll and attend any state-funded South Carolina school, very sadly. So what they need to do is follow the next arrow to search for other schools. There are some options for them inside of South Carolina with private schools and things like that. Or if they want to go outside of South Carolina, they'd find the list of things that would be options there. And again, of course, the pathway for a student like this is going to be more complicated and difficult than a traditional student who was born here, whose parents were born here. But we want them to know by the time they get to the bottom of this pathway that they do have ways to get into college. And then later on, we'll talk about ways to pay for it as well. So that's kind of how the flow chart would work. And we challenge students to draw out their pathway so they know here on the page where they can go and what their options are. And again, some students may work through these flow charts and feel a bit discouraged to hear things like, I can't go to school in any public school in South Carolina because I'm undocumented. But they need to know that they do have a pathway to college. There's cool private schools in this state and outside. There may be other options for accredited and reputable online universities that are not based in South Carolina. There's lots of colleges in other states that are wanting to accept undocumented students and give them really a lot of money sometimes to come and study because they realize the potential these students have and the obstacles they overcome to get how far they have. And many times they're in the top 10% of their class. and just don't have a shot to go to college here in South Carolina public schools. So we want to make sure everyone sees that and has a hopefulness about these documents and as they look at their own pathways and the possibilities they have. The third flow chart, of course, is very, very important to show me the money. It's the financial pathways. And students, again, start at the top in the blue box there, the teal box, and they just start in the diamond, answering yes or no and following the flow chart. And again, all the way down to the bottom of the page, it'll show the options they have of searching for scholarships, whether it's federal and state scholarships, or if it's not, private scholarships and other ways to find money through colleges and universities and other organizations to help them out. And of course, the rest of the document in front of the student is kind of a fleshing out of all these flow charts. It gives them more and more information about each of these things so they know really where to go and how to do it, how to get there. The next page after the flow charts is going to talk about some terms. Documented students, who are the students who receive DACA status at some point in the past. There's no students that can enter that new at this point, but if they have DACA and they keep renewing it every 2 years, at this point it's still a distinct section of students we need to talk about. The second one is talking about legal permanent residents. We don't spend a lot of time in this document on those. The third category is undocumented students, at which point we do give a lot of resources for them. And the fourth is U.S. citizens. And many of our students are U.S. citizens, but sometimes their parents are not. So we need to make sure that they understand a couple things that are important for their pathway to college, military, and career as well. So quick jump over to the student and parent edition. There's a couple things following those terms in your faculty version. They're going to be only in the student and parent edition, which are just things we know that you already know. For example, a link to the uniform grading policy to talk about all the different things about getting out of high school. A description of each of the career clusters that will help them understand their options for their IGPs. It's going to talk about meeting South Carolina grad requirements versus what it takes to get into college. Understanding those things for parents is really important, so we thought we'd include it in this document as a kind of a master resource for them. So then again, what we see in each of the versions, the faculty and the student parent version, is this quick reference guide, which kind of color codes and shows us the three different categories of students that this document is really focused on. First category are the students in the green, which is they are U.S. citizens, but their parents are not. And then there's going to be a category in the blue there, for students who are eligible for DACA. Those are the documented students. And then the yellow category are undocumented students who do not have legal representation in the United States and what their options might be. And so each of these categories is broken up into a couple different groupings. This quick reference document shows what their access to colleges is in South Carolina, and then what their tuition is going to look like, what their options are for federal and state financial aid, and then what their options are for private scholarships. So it's a quick little one-pager to give students a basic idea. And then the many pages following this takes each of those color-coded sections and goes into the college, the military, and the career pursuits that are a possibility for that distinct group of students. So the green group and the blue group and the yellow group each have their own 3 to 4 pages of information for college, military, and career, but each one needs to look very carefully to read their section. They look very similar, but sometimes the details are quite different. For example, no undocumented or documented student is able to enroll in the military at this point. And so they need to know that and be able to read up on what their options are to know what things might look like in the future for them. And so it's very important that they read their section once they know their status, to know what their options are, and then to go from there to find more help and more resources. The next section after those many pages of documents is going to talk about some of the relevant laws and policies affecting students who are documented or undocumented, or U.S. citizens whose parents are undocumented. There's a lot of things that they need to know, and this serves as a quick overview of their rights in the K-12 setting, and then some of their rights and options in the setting beyond college. So we'll leave that to you to read over those, to familiarize with that to help students better. And then the last couple pages are some additional resources that will hopefully support you and also students and parents, broken up into 3 categories. The first one is about guidance and regulation. These are some federal oversight issues, helping students keep up to date with the most current links from the State Department and from other agencies that will help them understand what DACA is looking like right now, or other sorts of qualifications for financial aid and things like that. The second category is just a bunch of resources and links for perhaps law firms who are willing and able to help students who may have tricky documentation status issues, or just resources for documented students or resources for undocumented students, and finding help and support they need from different places around the internet. And the third page, or the third section on the next page, is about just a long list of scholarships that we've found, which of course is not exhaustive at all. Some of them are apps to find scholarships. Some of them are specifically targeted to undocumented and documented students. Some of them are achievement. Some of them are based on heritage and language. There's lots of different scholarships. And of course, this is not exhaustive, but we're trying to do our best just to make sure that students have some resources that are quality, that have been vetted, that are going in the right direction to help them to pay for school. And if I haven't mentioned it yet, the purpose of this document overall is to really help students understand they have a pathway to college and career goals. We want to make sure every student knows that, every student believes that every faculty member and staff member helping them knows and understands that too. Because we've heard really sad stories at times of faculty members who think a student doesn't have an option for something, but they actually did. Or a faculty member who's been helping a student for quite some time to realize only that because of documentation status, the student is actually not able to pursue that career route and that pathway. So we need to make sure we're up to date on things and make sure we can help them to be wise and to be smart. And just as a final thought before we go, it is really important for us to keep in mind that we should never be keeping any kind of records or anything on paper that could be taken to be used in a place that would damage the student in the future. If students do let us know about their status, and if not that they're U.S. citizens or permanent residents or have a visa, then we need to make sure we hold that sensitively and make sure we take care of their privacy and the privacy of their parents. Every student has every right to be in any K-12 setting with us, with any program and anything they want to be a part of. It's completely open to them, but it does get tricky when they get out in the world of work and military and school and college. So it's good for us to know that, to help them out. We want them to know they all got pathways. Because after graduation, we want these students to keep smiling. We want them to keep doing great work. We want them to contribute to our society and continue to find ways as we hope that they'll have a bright future in whatever they pursue. So thank you very much for your time, and please be in touch with the ESOL department, with the college and career folks, and if you need any help from us, let us know. Also, we're very indebted to Charleston County, who put together a lot of these resources that we took and extrapolated and made for our district. Without their help, this couldn't have been possible. So have a great time working with students and helping them in their linguistic and culturally diverse backgrounds to do awesome work. Thanks so much.